Michelle thinks American men suck.
And my goodness, you want to talk about the most overrated political hype of a generation? It would go to Michelle Obama. Anyway, that's just a side note that's been on my mind for a while.
I'm happy to make fun of her look. It's very strange. It was Benny Johnson who dubbed that one hairstyle the Stegosaurus.
I'm not getting into that.
She three bumps on the back, Stegosaurus. It's very strange.
Michelle Obama has openly admitted that she and Barack sleep in separate bedrooms. Here's how it works. She sleeps downstairs, and he likes men. Chinning. The weather. Let's do a monologue. Rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Michelle Obama says she doesn't want to be in politics. She's above the fray. She's just here to inspire, to uplift, to heal the nation. One softly spoken metaphor at a time, but behind the glow of her TED Talk vibes and Spotify playlists, something doesn't add up. Because if she's not in politics, then why does she keep popping up every election cycle like a campaign ad wrapped in a green smoothie? Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld saw right through it. They didn't come to flatter, they came to expose. And what they uncovered has Michelle's PR machine scrambling. Because once you strip away the Vogue covers, the memoirs, the Netflix lighting, what's left isn't a reluctant citizen reluctantly dragged back into the spotlight. No, what's left is a brand, a business, a billion-dollar performance dressed as public service. And before we dive into the illusion behind the image, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We break through political smokescreens and media fluff to bring you what's really going on behind the headlines. You don't want to miss what comes next. It all started with Michelle's new wave of interviews. A flood of talk shows, podcast appearances, book promos, and non-campaign tours. Just when you think she's retiring into quiet, private life, she's back on stage, bathed in golden lighting, surrounded by adoring crowds, repeating her favorite message, "I'm not running for anything." Of course, that's what makes it all work. The trick is pretending she's not trying, while running the most carefully curated media campaign in modern political history. Greg Gutfeld nailed it when he said Michelle Obama is like political tofu, somehow showing up at every barbecue, marinated in moral lectures, insisting she's the main course, and nobody's allowed to ask why she's even there. Megyn Kelly, never one to mince words, called it exactly what it is, a moral superiority tour disguised as motivational speaking. Because every time Michelle Obama appears, there's a message. Subtle, emotional, and wrapped in polished empathy. But a message nonetheless. One that always seems to suggest that if you're not voting her way, you're probably a disappointment. Take her latest appearance, where she warned that if the next election goes wrong, women across the country, wives, daughters, mothers, will become collateral damage to male rage. She wasn't talking about policy, she was talking about morality. And of course, the underlying message was clear. If you care about your family, you'll vote the way she wants you to. But here's the thing, this isn't a political debate. Michelle Obama doesn't allow for that. Because the moment you question her narrative, you're labeled cruel, sexist, or just plain ignorant. Even when she's the one launching passive-aggressive grenades at half the electorate. Even when she's suggesting that Republican women are too dumb to think for themselves and only vote the way their husbands tell them to. Greg Gutfeld had enough of it. He laughed at the absurdity of a woman who complains about political division while walking around with a moral sledgehammer. He pointed out that Michelle could criticize capitalism from a stage funded by Netflix, and nobody bats an eye. Because, for her, contradiction isn't a problem, it's a brand. And then there's the media. Every time Michelle opens her mouth, they throw roses like she's descending from the clouds with a new set of commandments. She wears yellow? Vogue writes 4,000 words about optimism and race. She wears boots? Those boots apparently speak truth to power. Greg joked that she could wear a hazmat suit, and the New York Times would call it pathogen-slaughtering elegance. The problem isn't that Michelle Obama has power, it's that she pretends not to. She plays the role of humble ex-first lady with a therapist's tone, while moving millions of voters with every carefully timed speech. And when someone like Megyn Kelly points out the double standard, she's accused of attacking a national treasure. Michelle says she's not political, but somehow she's in therapy, transitioning from her hard life as First Lady. Her word, not ours. She says every choice she makes now is her own, that she's healing. And while most people process trauma in private, Michelle does it on stage and in front of thousands with a glam squad and a Netflix crew in tow. Megyn Kelly brought receipts. She reminded everyone that Michelle's marriage, often portrayed as flawless, was publicly declared a struggle for 10 years. A full decade of frustration and resentment, something Michelle now uses as a lesson in resilience, but also, strangely, as a platform to explain why she can still judge other people's relationships and voting decisions. There's something hollow about it, something off, like watching a motivational speaker who just can't stop reminding you how tough it is to be famous. And that's what Gutfeld nailed in his takedown. He called it influencer energy with national security clearance. She's a walking lifestyle brand disguised as a civic leader, a mashup of Gwyneth Paltrow and Oprah, but with a secret service. Detail. And every time she's criticized, the same defenses come out. She's a woman. She's black. She's not running for anything. So why are you being so mean? But here's the truth. The criticism isn't about her identity. It's about the contradiction. Because you can't say you're tired of politics while touring, like a presidential candidate, and scolding Americans who disagree with your worldview. You can't preach unity from a private jet. You can't shame half the country while claiming to understand the struggles of the average American. Not when your average day includes yoga on the balcony, 5-figure speaking gigs, and a wardrobe that gets its own media coverage. Michelle. Obama says she wants to be above politics, but what she really wants is the spotlight, with none of the scrutiny, the power without the responsibility, the influence without the pushback. And maybe that's what makes her so effective, because most people are too afraid to say it, too afraid to point out that behind the green smoothies, the inspirational sound bites, and the soft piano music, there's a calculated PR machine humming like a Tesla on full charge. Megyn Kelly wasn't afraid. Greg Gutfeld laughed in its face. And that's when things started to unravel. And unravel it did. Because once the curtain was pulled back, the audience couldn't unsee the stage lights, the teleprompters, the stylists, and the script. Michelle Obama wasn't speaking off the cuff. She was delivering curated sound bites, polished to perfection by teams of media consultants, PR advisors, and brand strategists. And yet, we were all supposed to believe this was raw vulnerability. She tells the world she's just a mom, just a woman figuring out life after the White House, and then steps into a 7-city book tour with lighting rigs and a documentary crew in tow. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, unless you're doing it while insisting you're not part of the machine, unless you're branding yourself as above it all, while standing at the very top of the ladder, shouting down at the rest of us about humility. Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly weren't even trying to destroy Michelle. They didn't need to. Her contradictions do the work for them. When you constantly float between victimhood and victory, between privilege and persecution, people start asking questions, like how a woman with a Netflix empire, multiple memoirs, and private island getaways is still treated like she's struggling to be heard. She's everywhere. And yet somehow we're told she's oppressed by the very attention she seeks. And here's the thing. Michelle Obama has become a symbol not of progress, but of performance. Her messages are always about how hard things are, how misunderstood she is, how exhausting public life has become, but the timing is never accidental. These emotionally heavy monologues always seem to arrive right before an election, a book release, or a new podcast season. Coincidence? Not a chance. Her Netflix documentary wasn't about policy or substance. It was a traveling sermon on how she feels. Stadiums were filled, crowds cheered, but what were they cheering? Not solutions, not change, just vibes, just the aura of Michelle. The idea of resilience, hope, and progress, carefully bottled and distributed by Penguin Random House. And the real kicker, she still manages to play the underdog. Michelle Obama, worth millions, married to a former president, adored by Hollywood, worshipped by media, gets to be both queen and martyr. It's marketing genius. She's not running for office, but every move she makes lands like a campaign strategy. When Megyn Kelly called her out for loving the spotlight while claiming to be exhausted by it, people gasped, but couldn't argue, because Kelly had proof. Receipts, interviews, quotes, speeches. Every time Michelle claims to be stepping back, she steps right into another promotional tour. Every time she says she's tired of politics, she inserts herself into the middle of a political fight. And then, There's the weaponization of race and gender. Any criticism, even when it's fair, factual, and well-argued, is immediately drowned out by accusations of racism, sexism, or not understanding the pressure she faces. It's a rhetorical fortress, and inside that fortress, Michelle is free to say anything she wants without ever having to defend it. That's what Greg Gutfeld highlighted so ruthlessly. He didn't need to be cruel. He just needed to be honest. He pointed out how the media shields her from any hard questions, how every appearance is staged, every comment pre-approved, every moment of vulnerability as carefully choreographed. As a Beyoncé halftime show, he mocked her for being a non-candidate with better branding than anyone running in 2024. Megyn Kelly went further, pointing out how Michelle's constant scolding of Republican women reveals not just elitism, but condescension. When she said women who voted for Trump don't value their own voices, it wasn't just a political statement, it was personal. It was an insult wrapped in faux concern. And it revealed something Michelle rarely admits. She doesn't understand, or doesn't care to understand, the other half of America. Instead of uniting, she divides softly. Instead of debating, she lectures. And instead of being held accountable, she retreats behind the protective veil of admiration. Now let's be clear, Michelle Obama is charismatic. She's well-spoken, she's intelligent, but that's not the issue. The issue is that she uses all those gifts not to lead, but to manipulate, to preach without participating, to influence without engaging in the ugly parts of political life, like open debates, tough questions, or real consequences. And when you start to notice that pattern, it's impossible to unsee. Because here's a woman who says politics is too dirty for her, but surrounds herself with the dirtiest players in the game. Who says she's all about hope, but spends most of her interviews talking about fear? Who says she's just trying to help people while charging $250,000 per speech, all while telling you the system is broken? It's the ultimate contradiction. The anti-politician who plays politics better than anyone else. The idea of Michelle Obama running for president is the Democratic Party's favorite fantasy. No debates, no controversies, just polished speeches, photo ops, and a media machine ready to crown her on arrival. But the reality? Michelle doesn't want the job. She wants the worship, the applause, the glow. Without the grind, that's what Megyn Kelly nailed. Michelle wants all the power of politics, none of the accountability. She claims to be tired of public life, while launching new memoirs, Netflix deals, and cross-country speaking tours every other year. She doesn't run for office, she runs around it. Greg Gutfeld compared her to a magician, dazzling the crowd with emotion while the real trick happens behind the curtain. And the trick is simple. Michelle presents herself as everyone's friend, everyone's mom, everyone's therapist. But what she's really doing is shaping political thought without ever having to defend her positions. And when challenged, the media rushes in to protect her like she's royalty. Criticism becomes hate, skepticism becomes misogyny, and Michelle floats right back to the stage, untouched. But Kelly and Gutfeld didn't attack her with insults. They did. Something worse. They told the truth. They pointed out the obvious, that Michelle Obama isn't just a public figure, she's a brand, a business, a calculated emotional enterprise designed to sell influence wrapped in sincerity. And now, more. People are starting to notice. Michelle Obama's greatest strength isn't her story, it's how she sells it. She wraps political pressure in poetic language, sells victimhood from a place of privilege, and disguises influence as inspiration. It's not leadership, it's illusion. She says she's just like us, while living a life most people can't imagine. She says she's above politics, yet uses every media opportunity to shape political behavior. And when critics point it out, the response is always the same. How dare you? But Gutfeld and Kelly didn't fall for it. They didn't need to yell. They just pointed at the pattern. And the pattern cracked. Michelle's power lies in silence, in people being too afraid to call her out. But once that silence breaks, so does the illusion. The truth? Michelle Obama isn't running from politics. She's running it from the shadows. And every time she appears with a soft smile and a heavy message, it's not just a speech, it's strategy. If you're tired of being told what to think by people who never face consequences, subscribe now. We're not done peeling back the curtain, and you deserve to see what's really behind the spotlight.